And even though that was the orientation, I understand that at those public hearings there was an overwhelming sense that people did not support horses in the park.
Yeah, 90%.
Yeah, so that even though it was about mitigation, people were very clear with the government and with the resort owners that they did not want this kind of use for the park.
That's
and
right.
Despite that, the government changed the master plan and now is allowing this organization to go forward.
Go for it. And another outcome of the blockade with the master plan was also the Strathcona Park Public Advisory Committee, which is a committee of a wide interest of people from different backgrounds. And they are to sort of represent the public to the government on matters to do with Strathcona Park. These people on the committee have to be vetted by the government, so their own committee unanimously voted against the change of the master plan, and they unanimously voted against the park use permit by the resort. And so that was kind of ironic that their own committee didn't agree with them, but it doesn't seem to hold any sway with them.
So your group has been very active, both prior when the public hearings were going on, but since then you've also been involved in trying to upgrade some of the infrastructure in the park so that it can be more accessible for ordinary people who want to have that experience without investing a huge amount of cost. What are some of the activities you've been doing?
Carl, do you want to take that?
No, you go ahead.
Okay. Well, last summer we had a Take Back the Park program. There is a lot of infrastructure in the park, trails that are overgrown, windfalls that create problems for hikers, and we thought we'd try and get the public involved for two reasons. One, if you're involved in a trail project, you take more ownership of the park. And two, just to see how decrepit our facilities have become. Like, it's an embarrassment. So we had a trail that goes up Crest Mountain. It's close to Gold River on Highway 28. And it's been closed for 2 years because of a bridge near the trailhead that has been fallen into disrepair. And instead of fixing it, Parks just put a sign up on it and said,
No go.
No go. And so we thought this would be a really good example of how volunteers can do something positive for the park at no cost to the public. So we got 55 to 60, I never got a full count, but a good number of volunteers that came out. And what we did, we built a trail that bypassed the bridge altogether. And this was along a trail that's actually marked out on old maps. We feel that it actually was part of the trail that went up Crest Mountain before it was changed to its current position. So we actually had to fight Parks in order to volunteer, and that unfortunately is a sad part of the park system today. In 2002, Scott Benton, who's executive director of Parks at the time, as of last fall, apparently he's changed, said that in 2002 the government more or less scrapped the volunteer program. And I think that just falls in with the general policy of the government that if we let our parks go downhill, then it's easier for us to invite private enterprise to come in and help save the day. So volunteers, by doing a lot of good work for nothing, doesn't fit into their program. I don't actually think they like volunteers. And this has come out from not just us, but a lot of volunteer groups from all over BC are having a lot of problems trying to do something to improve the park or other parks and just running into red tape, sort of a feeling that we're a nuisance. So in the end, on the day of the trail building, Parks did help out. They had 2 rangers there, and they did provide some of the services that are required, such as medical preparedness type of stuff. And we built this trail, and when we build a trail, it's not a trail that you'd normally think of in Banff Park, for instance. It's a natural footpath,
Right.
and we use hand tools. We don't use power saws or anything like that. So we made a very good hiking trail, and we improved the existing trail higher up the mountain as well.
Mm-hmm.
In the end, Parks decided that they would replace the bridge. And so I believe it's $38,000 of public money went into a bridge that we don't
That
feel
wasn't necessary.
That wasn't necessary. But they have their own, I think bureaucracies have their own momentum.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think they like other people coming in.
This bridge that had been condemned by the Parks branch for 2 years, so that trail was blocked for 2 years. I think it took us about 2 weeks to fight our way through the bureaucracy and be allowed to build our way around it. So it had been closed down for 2 years, and in 3 hours we had created a very good practical trail around at no cost to the public.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what volunteers can do. And in fact, most of the trails in Strathcona have been built by volunteers historically. The government has built a few trails, and they have turned into erosion traps, basically, just eroded creek beds. And they claim, so they're interested in commercial people building trails, apparently, and at high cost, which turn into the trails end up not being suitable to the park, and they just wash out. That's what they've done.
Yeah. The contractors aren't generally wanting to build the best trail. They want to build the best trail that gives them the best return.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a trail that goes from Jim Mitchell Road up to Bedwell Lake. That's a very expensive trail. And they have staircase, steel staircase ladders that go up cliffs that they don't have to go up, really. And now that is falling into disrepair. The snow load up there is tremendous. It's bending off all the handrails, and I think they're actually dangerous now because they're kind of
dangerous.
They lead the hikers up kind of into a dangerous spot on going up a cliff face, and there's no handrail.
Mm-hmm.
But I see no budget or inclination that Parks is going to fix that. Whereas if a volunteer group had built that trail, they'd be looking for the path of least resistance.
Mm-hmm.
That say that elk would take. Quite often elk know a lot better where to go than humans do. We can learn from them, and that's the kind of trail that we like to build.
And the horse trail in the Bedwell, if it ever is built, will be subject to tremendous washouts.
Mm-hmm.
It basically busts its way through the country. It'll cost humongous money. It'll cost humongous money to maintain it. It's totally impractical. The valley actually now is going back into a wild valley it once was, which I think it should be allowed to return to. It's not time to introduce a new commercial enterprise in there. I think the valley deserves to be allowed to become wild again like it once was. It's well on the way. It's getting rid of the logging road. It doesn't need another commercial venture in there at this point. And it is, I think, the commercial venture is impractical. I think there's a very good natural way through the valley, which is on the opposite bank to what the horse trail that people are intending to do, which won't be subject to erosion, which volunteers can build a trail and maintain it. And it's a lot more scenic and a much nicer trail. So it's hard to watch people that don't understand the park being allowed to ruin it. That's what's happening. People that have spent 60 years in the park, they're being ignored. All over BC this is happening. That was the value of the volunteer system. And you don't learn much about the park from behind a desk or even from one visit. And actually, people who have spent a long time there have valuable knowledge that shouldn't be being wasted. Anyway,
you have a dilemma in that something that you don't want to happen has been, they've given the go-ahead for this company to go for permitting. That takes me to my question about what do you think the provincial government could or should be doing to preserve our park system, to recognize the wilderness values of parks, to make the priority ordinary British Columbians rather than commercial ventures? What kinds of provincial policy do you think would need to be in place for us to actually have a park system where people can feel confident that the parks will be used for the right purpose?
I'd actually like to see parks taken away from BC Parks.
Okay.
In that, whether there's a Parks Commission that's sort of
arm's length
from the government,
separate from government,
and has a lot of local community involvement in a particular park. Like because parks have their own personality. A park like Strathcona on a rainforest park is a lot different than a park in a Chilcotin. And horses in a Chilcotin are natural, or a natural fit, more natural fit
right
there, because there are horse herds that run wild there. That's not the case in Strathcona.
So would you see that Parks Commission potentially being local, so that there would be a commission for Strathcona Park and commission for other parks? Or do you think there would need to be an umbrella group that would look at all of the parks in BC?
I'll say a little bit here. I think both. We have this Strathcona Park Public Advisory Committee, and they're an advisory committee. I'd almost want them to be more of an advocacy committee, and not have a veto on who's on it by the government, essentially.
So elected boards or community?
They could be elected. Whether there's there are a lot of outdoor organizations, that perhaps if they got together in a provincial umbrella group, that would have some kind of input on, what should be allowed and not allowed in parks. Whether it's going to be a wilderness park or whether it's going to be a horseback riding park, and perhaps there should be some variation. They don't all have to be the same. But then there should be some kind of umbrella group for all the parks. I'm not the smartest guy to figure out how bureaucracies work.
Yeah, you just know this one isn't working.
Yeah, I know.
In the interests of Strathcona Park.